Cryptocurrency bill will mitigate key risks for Web3 investors if it can pass. And we're going to go ahead and take a look at this and see what is in the bill. Brandon has a good quote. He says, "That's why he never pulls out, my friends." So what happened? Bipartisan crypto legislation titled the Responsible Financial Innovation Act was introduced Tuesday by Cynthia Lummis from the Senate Banking Committee and Kirsten Gillibrand from the Senate Agricultural Committee. The bill addresses many thorny issues with regards to cryptocurrency regulations, such as delineations between CFTC and SEC jurisdictions. I want you to note something here that's really funny. It's coming from the Senate Agriculture Committee. It's kind of one of those weird things. Why do, ATF with alcohol, tobacco, and firearms? What does firearms have to do with alcohol and tobacco? Why are those three lumped in together? Why is cryptocurrency being lumped into agriculture? Well, pay attention to why, right? I would like you to, just for fun, you can throw on a tinfoil hat if you want, but go see what's happening, with the Dutch. Go see what's happening with farmland in general, even stateside, and pay attention to what's going on. Like here in Texas, for example, we have essentially an initiative where ranchers are buying or basically selling direct to public their products via Bitcoin. And that is a big industry that could move over to a more decentralized form of payment. And if you talk about the adoption and those two kind of going hand in hand, some of this starts to make a little bit more sense, is all I'm saying, right? Because where's the threat? It's kind of like the reason why it's a lot more difficult to go out and buy like unpasteurized raw milk. The bill addresses many thorny issues with regards to cryptocurrency regulations, such as delineates between CFTC and SEC jurisdictions, stablecoin collateralization requirements, and the treatment of digital assets for tax purposes. The goal of the bill is to generate more flexibility, innovation, consumer protection, and transparency while providing more certainty and clarity to the growing digital assets industry. So you need to know who these people are, by the way, and then try to decide if they're compromised in any form or fashion and what they align with and so on. You have U.S. Senator Cynthia Lummis, Republican of Wyoming. You have, did I say that right? U.S. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, Democrat, New York. You have Gary Gensler, who is obviously the chairman of the SEC and running dirty deals with FTX. Allegedly, allegedly. Rostin Benham, the chief of the CFTC, and Dennis Keller, the co-founder Better Markets, and served on Biden's transition team. Context, the cryptocurrency industry has long asked for more regulatory clarity, especially in terms of the projects, which projects fall under SEC jurisdiction as securities and those that are part of the CFTC's jurisdiction as commodities. The SEC oversees all securities activities with the exception of derivatives, contracts that track commodities based on old case law, and the Howey test. However, as this new technology is taken off, most tokens do not fall neatly into a security or commodity bucket, leading to many different interpretations and projects who want to stay in the US spending a lot of compliance and legal resources and expenses. To date, the only tokens that have been effectively deemed commodities are Bitcoin and arguably Ether, which obviously, no. Ether arguably now, according to the SEC, specifically citing one of the reasons being inability to withdraw, which may be, like we said, with the Shanghai update being moved forward to 2023 next year, could be alleviated. But the primary thing that they stated there was the inability to withdraw did make it a security. And then we'll have to see how they handle the other reasons surrounding proof of stake, which is basically purchasing it and putting it in a node and locking it up with the intention or the promise of the developers actually doing something, right? So it doesn't pass the Howey test, essentially, is what I'm saying. So specifically, the bill offers a modified version of the Digital Commodity Exchange Act. And I want to say thanks for the $20 super chat from Matt K. I'll get to your question in the Q&A if you don't mind. But super thanks for that. So the bill appears to make the CFTC the default primary spot market regulator for the cryptocurrency industry and arguably give the CFTC a larger group of token projects to oversee, arguably taking power from the SEC. And this has been one really interesting thing that has been going on within these organizations that you need to pay attention to, because originally, like, the idea was, well, the CFTC doesn't have the capabilities to regulate to the extent that the SEC does. And so a lot of crypto proponents, right, a lot of advocates would say, well, we want the CFTC to govern the cryptocurrency industry because of its inability, essentially, at the end of the day, to effectively regulate the industry. And here's where things get a little interesting. The fight between the CFTC and the SEC has actually been that of funding recently. So when you pay attention, so when you start to read about like whether or not like it's going to go under the CFTC or the SEC, realize that there's lobbying between these two groups essentially because there is additional funding that the federal government will provide to either organization to regulate, right? So the CFTC is fighting actually extremely hard right now to get jurisdiction essentially over cryptocurrency, get the regulatory power over cryptocurrency because they want to increase their funding. And with the increase of funding, of course, will become more regulation. They would promise more regulation and such for cryptocurrency, provided they got the amount of funding that they needed. So really, from the perspective of like what's actually going on is that the CFTC is trying to increase their funding, right? I don't think that, essentially, I think like the CFTC initially, if grabbing regulation, would be slow to act surrounding cryptocurrency, but eventually would build itself up through funding from the federal government, the additional funding, to regulate it more stringently over time. And I think that that is the ploy that they're working on here. So it's not all cut and dry, right? There's a lot of stuff going on in the background there. The bill introduces new language and definitions. And, oh, by the way, sources, I don't have the direct source for that right now, but we already did cover this earlier this year, which was basically during the Biden's digital currency proposal, or what do you call it? Oh, man. Why am I forgetting the name of it? The executive action. Anyways, in that, as part of that, the CFTC was saying, well, if this is going to be the case, we need more funding, right? So already the CFTC has said, if we regulate cryptocurrency, we need more money. That's already been stated by them. That's where I get this from, right? So, executive order though. Thank you, Balu. I don't know why I'm blanking there. Specifically, it coins the term ancillary asset, which is a token provided to a purchaser under an investment contract that is not inherently a security. The legislation grants the CFTC exclusive spot market jurisdiction over all fungible assets which are not securities, including ancillary assets. The presumption that an ancillary asset is a commodity can be appealed in court. The bill is the latest of many prior efforts that have been offered into Congress to address some of these regulatory gaps and challenges in the cryptocurrency industry. None have passed so far due to a variety of factors stemming from legitimate debate, procedural grounds, and congressional intractability across a wider range of issues beyond cryptocurrency. So the bill appears to have more momentum than prior congressional efforts at crypto regulation. Not only is it bipartisan, It appears the bill was shared with at least some relevant federal agencies that gave feedback prior to submission. These efforts already give it a step up from prior efforts such as the Token Taxonomy Act, originally introduced in 2019 and then reintroduced by Representative Warren Davidson, Republican of Ohio, in May of 2021. As the name suggests, the Token Taxonomy Act tried to provide a clear definition of a token that would be exempt from securities law. The bill did not pass and received some criticism about being written too ambiguously and leaving too much up to the SEC interpretation. At that time, members of the Senate also questioned if this kind of bill was necessary. Still, the long legislative process makes it unlikely that the bill will pass this year, as there will be time for the industry to comment over the next 6 months, and the bill will continue to be refined. It is expected that the bipartisan legislation will go through the Senate's Banking, Agriculture, Intelligence, and Banking committees, and then the equivalent committees in the House. Under these committees, the bill may move forward as a whole or in different parts. Additionally, Biden's executive order on March 9th of 2022 asked various regulatory agencies to investigate and submit reports on a similar list of topics included in the bill. The order required within 180 days of the Secretary of the Treasury, in consultation with other agencies, to submit a report on the future of money and payment systems. Those reports will likely be submitted by September of 2022. Many people on the Hill will likely be interested in seeing the results of the executive order studies before revising or moving the bill forward. The industry has been widely supportive of the bill. This bill sets a framework for how tokens should be treated for regulatory compliance purposes. As a result, this will give projects under clear guidance, promote business formation in the U.S., and ultimately result in fewer surprise enforcement cases. The next steps are to promote the principle laid forward by the Congress, by the broader Congress, says Michelle Bond, CEO of Atom. But others have started to voice concerns focusing on the CFTC's capability to administer its growing powers. Dennis Keller, a co-founder of Better Markets, a prominent financial reform advocacy group, and who served on President Joe Biden's transition team, said that handing crypto regulation to the CFTC is a deliberate attempt to shove responsibility onto the agency that Congress has left without resources for years. He said the legislation in effect deregulates crypto because the CFTC isn't equipped to regulate the complex and fast-growing sector. The CFTC is the smallest financial regulator with the smallest budget, he said. We already covered this. But Wall Street and its allies in Congress have made sure that the CFTC has been chronically underfunded for years, making it impossible for the CFTC to even fulfill its current responsibilities. Conversely, in May 2022, the SEC announced the allocation of 20 additional positions to the unit responsible for protecting investors in crypto markets and from cyber-related threats. The newly renamed Crypto Assets and Cyber Unit, formerly known as the Cyber Unit, in the Division of Enforcement will grow to 50 dedicated positions. It is also worth remembering that unlike the SEC, the CFTC does not have the same investor protection mandate. Investor protection remains a big focus for the Biden administration and a growing concern in the industry after the Luna crash a few weeks ago. Even a truncated version of this bill should have a positive impact on the industry's ability to grow. As written, cryptocurrency projects that are responsibly set up and legally compliant will benefit from the additional regulatory clarity. The bill should also have a calming effect on investors' fears regarding a regulatory clampdown on certain projects. Projects not yet sufficiently decentralized would be required to file minimum disclosures with the SEC. That will be less burdensome than current procedures, but still helpful to investors. Once the project becomes fully decentralized, those reporting requirements would end and compliance costs reduced. My question, of course, would be like, what makes it fully decentralized in the terms of regulation, right? Like what constitutes full decentralization? That is, I'm extremely curious as to what that would be. This would also allow cryptocurrency exchanges to feel more comfortable with listing projects where cryptocurrency associated has real utility. Cryptocurrency exchanges currently put a lot of resource into conducting token reviews, comparing tokens against the Howey test to try and determine if they feel comfortable listing. Exchanges are also currently in a catch-22 where the SEC has said some are listing many tokens that are unregistered securities and the exchange should be registered as a broker-dealer, but it remains a question if the SEC and FINRA will even approve an application to be a cryptocurrency-related broker-dealer. Still, the cryptocurrency projects that offer digital assets that provides holders with debt or equity or create rights for profits or other financial interest in a business entity would still themselves need to register and be regulated with the SEC. This still would be helpful to investors because it makes it more clear which projects are embracing regulation and which are trying to avoid regulation and putting consumers at risk. Now, obviously, if we go with the fundamentals of cryptocurrency, just to be clear, avoiding regulation or a third party is not necessarily a negative fundamentally within cryptocurrency. In fact, like that would be one of the tenets of cryptocurrency, which would be the being able to transact peer-to-peer without the interference of a government body, right? Or a bank, a third party. It's interesting. I want to say thanks to Raven Boy Crypto for the $50 super chat. Happy holidays to you as well, my good man. And I hope you are enjoying your December and your holidays. So obviously, like, we're going to have to move some of these to the next show. So I'm going to wrap. We're going to blow through this really, really quickly because we only have about another 15 minutes. But don't worry. At the top of the chat, there's a little clicky for the after party stream that will be at 10:30 p.m. over on Rumble and Locals. It's free to become a member over at Locals and watch, so please do so. And then hopefully we can also have some time to play some video games. We'll be talking about stuff that we cannot talk about over here, including a ton of tinfoil hat goodies for you guys. So definitely check it out. As far as the rest of this show goes, though, we do have to cover some things. Deploying and running Solidity smart contracts on Zilliqa is now available. This is going to be obviously important for Solidity developers looking for a proof of work entity to develop on, right? It's interesting. Definitely should check it out. You can connect your MetaMask as well with these settings that are in the article linked down below. Now, this is examples for the testnet, and I believe mainnet is on here as well, or are they still in testnet all the way? Let's check. So it's coming to Zilliqa. Yeah, so right now, the EVM testnet is up, but the main is not. So you can participate within the testnet. You can get a public faucet, start messing around. If you're a Solidity developer and you want to start messing around and you want to deploy via EVM, there's all of that stuff to mess with. I think, you know, obviously, like, just this news alone did look extremely bullish on Twitter as far as, like, tons of people are super excited about it. Not to the extent that people were super excited about, you know, the transaction per second on the Rust rewrite for Caspa. There we go. But, you know, as far as the most bullish news for the week, as far as driving interaction on Twitter goes, this seemed to drive the most interaction this week so far that I could tell within, you know, our proof of work kind of scene. So it's definitely something to take a look at. And then if it's something that you're already working on, I think that's important too. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Crypto Mining Show. You can check out the full episode here or more crypto content down here. Also, I'd like you to check out my Locals page at sonofatech.locals.com where you can become a member for free or choose to be a $5 a month supporter that unlocks additional content.